Sports Director Jeff Hathhorn joins us now. Beat the fall rush. Get 35% off Gutter Helmet. Visit gutterhelmet.com or call 888-5HELMET. Jeff on the Fan Hotline presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. Good morning to you, Jeff. What's going on, buddy?
Good morning, guys. Another rough Bucco game.
It sure was. And every week I feel like we are discussing one or two games where we go, oh, that was the worst loss of the season. And we will get to that. But it hit me and I don't want to forget, Jeff. 8-7, Crosby's birthday comes and goes and no Crosby contract. Should we have our ears perked here? Or should we be worried? What do you think's going on?
I think every day that goes by, you should at least, I think this concern should grow. Like, he's one of those guys you just can't fathom in another jersey. I mean, that doesn't mean it can't happen, though. I mean, how does he assess where he's at? Is he happy in Pittsburgh? Does he see something there that maybe some of the fans don't see or experts don't see or some of us that logically look at the team don't see, that he's so set in his ways in Pittsburgh? Or does he want to chase another cup? If he wants to chase another cup, I don't know why he'd sign here.
Jeff, heading over to the Pirates, I tweeted last night, nail in the coffin, and it feels that way. It feels like all the excitement has been drained, and the realistic ending for the Pirates is to not make it in a wild card spot or not make it to the playoffs, and then you're right back to square one in the offseason, figuring things out, and you wasted a year of Paul Skeens. But does it seem like Shelton's overwhelmed at times throughout these, at least throughout the last couple games? Do you feel like he's overwhelmed in his manager spot?
I mean, he's made a couple of bad decisions, that's for sure. I mean, maybe I do think it's more about the execution of players when it comes down to coaches or manager decisions. So many times, hey, if the players execute the play, it's not, or if you bring in a player in a certain situation, we've seen it, a ton of times where Shelton's made the right call because somebody's executed. I just think right now it's all over the place. The defensive error here or there, mental mistake here or there, bad break here or there, bad decisions here and there. And it's when you make those type of mistakes, and yesterday it's 6 2-out RBIs. And you think, okay, get some clutch hits, you're going to be able to pull it off. But if you do that against better teams, I think that's what you're saying. You can make mistakes against the White Sox and still you don't make those mistakes against San Diego. And I think you've also learned from San Diego. They've got a really tough mentality, man. They never say die. They're hustling. They're focused. I mean, it's a good baseball team. And if you don't bring it against them, even one slight error, you're done. And then, man, Colin Holderman's a good dude.
Boy.
3 appearances, 3 losses in August.
Yeah, and 4 of your last, 6 losses are all on his ledger, too. And he hasn't been good enough, and he knows that, too. Jeff Hathhorn joining us here on the Fan Morning Show. Does the organization look at Shelton these last 50 or so games, and what happens in these 50 or so games determines whether or not he's back next year? Or do you think regardless of what happens, Derek Shelton is leading the ship next season?
I don't think regardless of what happens. I mean, let's see how these last 50 play out. If there are obvious mistakes, if there are things that management thinks, hey, we should have done this here or there. But I think they'll take, what you'll hear from Ben Cherington and these type of topics when we ask him is, let's go through the entirety of the season before we make a decision. Let's see how the whole thing plays out before we decide. But, yeah, if it appears to Doran's point that he looks overwhelmed or he's making, decisions that are obviously looks like he's not in the right position or he's not ready for prime time, I guess, Doran, I don't want to take your words, but I think that's maybe what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Then, yeah, they could make a change at the end of the year, but I think it would have to be egregious. They've had a good relationship. They've liked what he's done to this point, and we'll see what they do in the next 50 games. Hopefully it's a lot better than we've seen in the last 6.
Jeff, both of us we think at the end of the day, Brandon Ayuk will be a Steeler. Give us a prediction when that will happen, though. When do you think that will go down? Because there's a lot of speculation. I mean, there's so much speculation out there of when and what and draft picks and things of that nature. But when do you ultimately think that, and if you do think that Brandon Ayuk is going to be a Steeler, when does that happen?
Yeah, and that's what I think the Steelers have done so well is they've been patient. There hasn't been any, we need to get him in now, or we're going to freak out and offer too much, or we're going to say we're out of this. They've been very patient in this situation. I would think by at least after the next preseason game. So you get in one type of rep, not that he necessarily needs to get into a game, but you get him in a little bit more practices. You get him a week or so before the season would start, since there's that break between the last preseason game and the start of the regular season. So I still think there's a little time. I get it. You want to have somebody in an offense and get to know guys and get to know the quarterbacks. But with a guy like Brandon Ayuk, he doesn't need that much time. And you can simplify the offense, or at least what he does in it, if you need to. But I think the Steelers are playing this well. Continue to be patient. Let this thing play out, and don't overpay when, maybe there's not the bidders that San Francisco thinks, or at least not a team that's willing to pay him the kind of money that he wants.
Jeff, we know that Justin Fields is going to start the game tomorrow now. Hey, we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And that Russell Wilson is not going to play. And Mike Tomlin, paraphrasing here, said that there's competition at every position.
Yeah.
How legit is the competition at quarterback? I guess I should ask it this way. If the door's ajar for Justin Fields to enter the door, just how ajar is that door?
Not very.
Okay.
As much as Tomlin said it was a competition, and the very next answer to the next question, he said, well, you saw my depth chart. I mean, Russell hasn't done very much at practice, and yet he's still listed as a starter. So I don't foresee that changing, at least early in the season. I can't imagine a scenario, barring injury, where he is not the starter week one. And as much as we tell ourselves don't overreact to preseason games, I mean, even if Justin Fields goes out and tears up a backup Texans defense, I think Russell Wilson will still be their starter. When they brought him there, they committed to him being the starter. He's dealt with a little bit of an injury. He'll be the starting quarterback.
Crosby, Ayuk, Fields, Shelton. Think we're good, Jeff.
Yep.
Thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Never boring in Pittsburgh sports.
It sure isn't, pal. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.